Do funky fantasy. Do the bowl. Do Stratosaurus. Bum special guest edition. It's the War of Nerds. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the War of Nerds podcast. Apologies for my voice sounding hoarse, but you just have to accept it. I'm the funky fantasy man, Nathan Helm.
I'm Alfred Muller.
And I'm Ryan Morgan, also known as Stratosaurus.
And tonight we have a special guest, so if you would like to introduce yourself and what you write, please take the floor away.
Awesome. My name is Megan G. Mossgrove. The Wingbreaker is a fantasy romance. And that's what it is.
Do you have a book close to you that you can hold up the cover and show everybody?
I have not told anybody that I ordered proofs.
Oh.
But... Nope.
It was good to... There we go.
There we go.
I want to do it.
Censorship.
This cover may say I'm getting art for the dust jacket that might migrate, and this might be on the hardcover under the dust jacket. So
nice.
Awesome.
Very nice.
It looks like a chunky monkey. How many pages is that book?
Ooh, good question. Chunky monkey. It's 455 pages.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
That's 175,000 words.
It was only 100,000 words. I think I used too big of a font.
Nah, there's no such thing as too big of a font.
I like it.
No,
I've gone too small before, so bigger is not say that, but better in that sense.
I mean, you look at you open up a Game of Thrones book or a Lord of the Rings book, and it's like 11 font, 10 font, like single space, and you're just
yeah.
Staring your face, like your eyeballs are popping, and you're trying to read it. And I get a migraine within about 5 seconds, so that's why I like KU, because just zoom it up a little bit.
Yep.
So the first drilling question of tonight is, since you've showed us your book, I would like to know, what is your process like for creating your world and your characters and your universe, kind of from beginning to end, pantser, plotter, all that good stuff. How do you go about that?
From very beginning, I actually started 2 different manuscripts and failed to make it to the end of previous stories. And this one was 3 years after my second child was born. They were finally getting a little bit more independent. And we were playing D&D a lot. And I said, maybe I should just chronicle our journeys. And lo and behold, all of my team members are not the best players, so they don't make for the most linear type of plot progression. And I was like, I could easily write a couple of characters in this world. Like, you've already built it. My husband is our DM, of course, our forever DM of a decade. And I said, we could just set it there. And he was like, have at it. And so the world is his. I have mutilated a bit to suit my specific needs. Like, I changed the origin of the dragons and kind of sped up the fall of the wizards so that we can start after that, whereas the wizards are still very highly respected. But the world started with him, and we plotted for probably 2 days. I talked at him and wrote things down, and then started writing 1,000 words every day for 85 days. And then my first draft was done. And did I stick to that outline? I did not. But the first draft was done. Then wow. I sent it to a reader, and I had no idea what alpha readers were, or that you were supposed to not send a rough draft to someone. So I am eternally sorry and forever grateful for the service that she gave me in hyping me up, and at the same time helping me realize that there was definitely steps to be taken. So then I accidentally found my way into a fantasy romance author Discord group that they were like, your book needs to be close to being done so that we can hype up each other. And I thought they meant your first draft, and I didn't understand anything beyond. I was like, the book is done. It's done. And then she was like, no, closer to being published. And then so I'm like, okay. And I sped edited for 6 weeks, just from beginning to end. And then I had 10 people read it. 10 people in that Discord read the book. And then I opened the Google Doc with 600 comments in it, and my soul melted off of my body because just that much feedback and comments. So many good things, so many good things, so many things wounded my sad writer soul. And I had to have that hard lesson that we all have to learn of, like, how valuable is that to have someone be honest with you, speak the truth to you that you can't see, and then walk with you as you fix it again. So it's been really good, and I wouldn't be here without them and their patience and that brutalizing that we all must endure to publish. That I think we all must endure it anyways. I know not everybody beta readers, but
That's an amazing story. I think that's just fabulous that it started with a D&D campaign, and a lot of listeners will know that we're big into family on this podcast. So the fact that it's you and your husband that started the world, and then you had inspiration and took off from there, that's wonderful.
Yep.
he's very
100%.
he's very proud.
Sounds like a very supportive group that you fell into. I mean, I kind of came across these two haphazardly, and they've been stark supporters of me ever since. But it's very wonderful the way you can find that community, whether you're in the indie or the trad publishing group. There are people that will build each other up, support each other. So that's fantastic.
It kind of
100%.
amazing to enter into the TikTok space and do what we've done with the Between the Pages and recognize how many people don't have that kind of support system. And so that's why I'm really passionate about what we do on that end, is because to me, I just fell into it on accident, naive, ignorant of like how difficult it can be to be alone and isolated. So yeah, I'm really, really lucky.
Well, you bring up the Between the Pages, and for the listeners who don't know, it's an amazing podcast, a little different than our own. They are a indie hype kind of thing for traditional published, indie published, human voice narration, all of that stuff. But that's just a general gist of it. Megan, if you could give us a little bit of backstory on how that started and what you guys do over there.
So BTP started, man, it's really kind of a serendipitous thing as well, because I had read that the best way to connect with people was to show up and be there, connect with them and make yourself accessible. And so Sean had started going live. I made a TikTok like a week before, and he started going live, and I started popping in every now and then, and Pebbles was like always there, and she was always like so funny and the best hype and always making fun of him or whatever. It was hilarious, and it started growing and growing. And I think Pebbles bullied him basically into doing interviews at first, because all he was doing was like reading his stuff, and like everybody was like, oh, we've heard this, you know. She was like, you bring somebody up. He did it one day and had a blast with it, and she was like, I'm gonna make you a background, I'm gonna make you a logo, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. And he's like, well, okay. And I think I was the third person that he interviewed, and then it's like after my interview he messaged me, he's like, hey, do you want to co-host with me on Mondays? And I was like, I can't see a reason why not. And then I was putting out like some more informational videos about like traditional craft wisdom and stuff. And I had somebody stitch it and basically be like, this advice that you're giving like ruined my life. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I messaged into the group chat, like I said the dreaded words, show don't tell, and I had people riled up. And he went back and he watched the video. He's like, actually, how about on Wednesdays you come in and we do workshop Wednesdays and talk about that stuff? And I was like, okay, let's do that.
Pebbles is awesome. She's actually one of my readers for my book series, and she's just a really, really kind person. Her that was a story I told you guys about Alfred and Ryan about the 12-year-old, her son, that really liked it. So yeah, she's fantastic.
Yeah, I love
That's
her.
crazy.
Along your journey, Megan, have you ever run into those situations? You know, we talk about the positive side of book talk and the negative side of book talk, because there is both. Have you ever run into the non-objective criticism where it's very much coming from a place of biasism, and telling you that, you can't do this because this is the norm, blah, blah, blah? Or have you mostly been on the side of, people are just giving you constructive criticism and just helping you just hone and clean your craft?
You mean like my beta readers?
Beta readers, just people giving feedback, anything like that. Yeah.
So I haven't put a whole ton of the Wingbreaker out there. I think like I did a reading for my interview, and I've done some various readings. I haven't had any like weird unsolicited advice about that kind of stuff. My beta readers, I think they only helped me. I think that in general, I'm very critical about that wisdom, that traditional, the things that they say, show don't tell, do this, do this, do this, do this. But I think that it has merit, and at the time you have to think critically and figure out where it's appropriate to apply that advice. So even if they said, try not to use filter words, try not to start your sentence with an ing word, I recognize that starting that way varies the sentence structure, but if you do it over and over and over again, then it's fine.
Yeah. That's good.
My first foray into the internet and getting feedback and whatnot was on WordPress, and it was I'm thankful for it now, but it was hard when I first got the feedback, because it was people who were like English majors and stuff, and they just attacked me, and I was like a 16, 17-year-old kid, and I was just like, oh man. But it made me think about it, like you said, you need to know those rules, and sometimes you need to hear those hard truths, and then you craft yourself around those critiques, and you find your voice that way. And I'm thankful for it now, because I think it helped me. But yeah, most of the time, like you said, you got to take what people tell you and then see how it fits to your story. Because some criticism, even though it could be absolutely true and absolutely great, it may not fit the story you're trying to tell. So I think that's great that you found that.
I think that it's important to note that I sought out those traditional wisdoms. I was on YouTube, I was on Pinterest, I was like listening and absorbing and like doing my best. I was like, as long as I follow this stringent set of rules, then I will write a good book. And I almost had to relax that a little bit more. Maybe my type A personality got in the way.
Absolutely. 100%. How about you, Ryan?
Well, I was going to touch on that as well. I know for every rule out there, you can find an exception that's sold bestseller on whatever list. But a quote I hear a lot is, if you're going to break the rules, you have to know them first. So to seek out that knowledge and know how and why it is the way it is, or they say what they say, and then to understand where you can apply that to your story and change it, is absolutely how it should go for that. But but with all you've said so far, you've co-hosted, you've written a book, you do a lot of editing. Have you looked into or think about at all co-writing a book with someone that you've come across so far, or is that not something you're interested in?
I think that it'd be fun, like maybe not a full chunky monkey, but if we did Bella or somebody with, I can think of a few friends that would be really fun to do that with. Have you guys?
That's awesome.
No, we've talked about it. We've thrown the idea around, but I mean, it's one of those questions we tend to ask a lot of authors. But to kind of follow up with that, if you were to do it with one of those friends, do you have kind of a story idea that you think would be more fun to co-author, or a theme that would fit that?
So the first thing that pops into my head is this random story that came from me editing one of my friend's books. She was talking about like the male main character was there, and he had a green line snaking into his arm because he was being poisoned. And I'm like, the poison line would be a great name for a story about a girl who works with all these herbs, and she's like a gatherer, and then there's another male, because there always has to be a love interest, right? And I was gonna be which poison something. I think she'd be down for that.
That's cool.
Very nice.
It's awesome.
With that in mind, that brings me to one of my questions. What do you think it is about romance that draws us all in, and what is it that fascinates us? Because while Nathan is kind of the odd man out on this, Ryan and I both have a soft spot for romance. And I think a lot of people are drawn towards romance. You see it in almost everything, especially TV. But what do you think it is about romance that we all kind of gravitate towards for the most part?
I don't want to be super callous in my answer, but I would argue the chemical reaction that it tends to elicit. Pretty easy to enjoy that feeling whenever the book's really good and you're like feeling what the characters are feeling, and we're kind of raised on it, right? To believe in happy endings, or I mean, I was with the Disney. What can you do?
Yes.
So I think that the idea of going through the trials and the tribulations and the hard things and then there being happily ever after is just something that's was maybe taught to us, but also our biology as well. That's my job.
100%. And when you're going through your writing, this is when I like to ask people, because it's cool to hear how they deal with it, or maybe if they don't have it at all. But through your writing journey, have you ever had or dealt with writer's block? And if so, how do you deal with it? Or do you not have it at all?
So for draft one, like I said, 1,000 words a day, 85 days, first draft done. I definitely hit a wall a little bit with those like 10 readers worth of feedback at first, because I realized how much work, like I thought I was like the mountain was here and I was right here, but I was like actually really way down here, and I still had all this way left. For book 2, I did 50,000 during Nano, and I have only written 1,000 since November. So I think I burned out really hard pushing for that. I don't think it was super necessary. I don't regret doing it. I'm not sure if I'll do it again.
Nano is something that I've found is a great tool to get you into the habit of writing. But in order to really perfect what that month does, you have to be very careful, because burnout is such a possibility. Not this past year, but the year before, I started on book 3 and I wrote and I got my 50,000 words done. But I was so, like you said, burnt out, and the words that I got down weren't the greatest. So there was a lot of editing that I needed to do. This past year, I knocked out my young adult novel in that month and I got over 50,000 words, and I felt much better about that time, because I didn't worry necessarily about the same details, and it was an easier story to write. But I went through the exact same thing you did, where it's like, I don't know if I want to do this again, because yes, I found a good way to structure my writing time, but the other time I was just, man, I just want to write and not have the stress of I have to get this many words down, otherwise I fail.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that thing we talk about with deadlines, right? Like when you give yourself a deadline, especially if you're hard on yourself, like I am, and I think all of us kind of are, you're getting like, I work 70 hours a week. So I kind of just decided after last year and writing 400,000 words, I just tossed deadlines out the window for this year. I'm like, you know what? Because you get halfway through, you're like, yes, halfway complete. And then a week passes by and you get nothing done. And you're like, but I have 25,000 left for the deadline and I only have a week left. And it takes the joy out of it, I feel like, for some people. So for me, I don't even bother with deadlines anymore too much. Did you have one, Ryan?
So yeah, with the romance kind of plot line, but you write fantasy, and it coming from the D&D world that your husband created. When you were writing your book, was it more character driven, or was it more the plot that was pushing your book forward?
I like to think that it's character driven, although there is definitely an inciting incident and all that good forces everything to happen. But for the most part, it's a jaunt through the woods. They're just taking a long walk and they're having a good time at points.
Well, that's good.
So I do have a question. On your TikTok, it says it's a slow burn romance, or fantasy with romance. Can you give, because you are actually the first romance writer that we've had on, or fantasy writer with a romance twist. So would you please describe to everybody what the difference between a slow burn is and what a spicy book is?
So a spicy book is going to have explicit scenes. It's going to be open door. You're going to expect more. Like my friend writes spicy books. She has a book that has like 4 scenes, and she has a book that has 9. And a slow burn. There's no spice in this one. They kiss in the last chapter. I'm sorry, spoiler for anybody listening. For anybody listening, they burn super super slow. And I'm happy with that. But a spicy book, if someone expected this to be spicy, they would give it like a 0 star. They'd be like, this is not what I wanted it to be.
What we've talked about before, if you enjoy a genre versus not being your cup of tea, and what bothers me is when I see people go and they specifically pick up a book that says romance, horror, and they don't like those genres, and at the end they're just like, oh, I'd give 0 stars if I could. It had a kiss in it. Well, it's a romance book, dog. Like, it's gonna be like that. Or they read a horror book, they're like, it was just disgusting, I was so scared, 0 stars. So I was, well, what do you go find a book you actually like. And it's no secret, I'm not huge into the romance genre, but I do like to have some love in books. A couple characters who you want them to get married, you're rooting for them throughout it until the one of them tragically dies in the other's arms, grimdark style. But like I said, I've got some issues. But what I want to know is, if you have the opportunity to write with kind of the co-writing thing, but if there was an author alive or dead that you could write with or do a project with, who would that be for you?
Oh, that's a rough one. Okay. Completely. Oh, wait. Hold on.
We finally got a question that stumped her.
I don't want to get his name wrong. Legends and Lattes.
Oh, I'm never
no
gonna think of the name.
No.
Alfred will look it up for you. So while he's looking that up, why don't you tell us, when you were a little girl, did you think about I'm sure you obviously read like books and stuff, but did you see yourself becoming a writer when you were younger? Was that something that you knew was just in your blood? And what were some of the books and authors that you enjoyed reading when you were younger?
Really
I
quick,
definitely
I have it. It's Travis Baldree.
Travis Baldree. Oh, beautiful prose, beautiful descriptions. I love everything about his writing, and of course it's fantasy, so it's beautiful. It made me cry. Yes, I definitely knew that I wanted to write. I wrote like a short story for a 7th grade class, and she was like, oh, this is so good. I was like, well, I guess I'm gonna do it for a living. And I tried to turn that one into my first manuscript, right? I started like when I was 12, and I kept pushing and pushing till I was like 17, eventually made it to college, and I was like, I'm gonna stop that one. I'm gonna try this new one that has dragons in it. And I kept jumping around. Some people are able to jump around and write different chapters that they find exciting and then weave it all together. No, that doesn't work for me.
That's awesome that you were that driven, though. I mean, from that young of an age. Like, I wish I would have kept going from age 12, but I let the little demon troll 6th graders, convince me that I sucked, and I gave up. So that's really awesome for you that you were able to keep with that passion. Sorry, Alfred Ryan smiles. We're gonna put something in there when we edit this episode. That's gonna I swear. We had an episode where we were talking about romance, and I was giving Ryan a hard time. I'm just like, every time you get a romance book that's just generic, like not a good romance book, but a generic one where the guy's name's something like bland, like Ryan or Chad or
Naturally.
Vanessa or Sabrina, like, hey, my name's Chuck. And they put a Jack Reacher picture on the episode. Sorry. Getting off topic. If one of you gentlemen would like to ask her the next question.
I do. So you loved writing from a young age. Is there a book that you remember from your childhood that really set you on your creative path? Or was it a series or a collection of books or just stories that you were told? What like created that creative drive in you?
I don't remember it being a specific book. I remember reading The Little Princess like 50 times over. I don't remember it making me want to write, but I definitely loved The Ranger's Apprentice. I loved Aragon. I loved Harry Potter. Good classics of my childhood days.
Ranger's Apprentice is one of my all-time favorites.
So good.
Okay, well, we have to ask, you know what, we're going to start a poll from this day forth with any romance author or lover that we
Okay.
have on here. The question of the century: to read or to not read The Fourth Wing? Do you like the book or do you not like it?
I made it 200 pages into the book and I set it face down on my counter one day and I never picked it up again. Like, I didn't not like it. I just got really busy and then I started reading other things instead. So I wouldn't, from what I know of reading the first half, I probably would have finished it if I had, two brain cells to ping together, but I'm not sure that I continued the second. Like, my TBR is a bajillion books tall and I have a very wide interest. So thoughts.
See, that's one of the funniest things. Like when people are like, "Oh, so you're a writer, so do you read a lot?" Yes, mainly I collect books and they just keep growing. But
Yeah.
but as a writer, you still love to read, and you have writer friends who have created books, and you're like, I'll read that for you, and I'll review it, and I'll look into and help you and all that stuff. And it's just like, oh man, what did I get into?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Audiobooks to the rescue.
Yep, that's what I've switched to lately.
Yeah.
So with the Wingbreaker, when you finally get it out, do you have another project in mind that you're going to go to after, or is it going to be a continuing series?
It's a series, it's a trilogy. I'm halfway through book 2, and I'm also halfway through what was supposed to be a novella and will probably end up being a normal size novel, as we all do the spin-offs with different characters.
Yep.
All of them in the same world. It's a very, very big world, so we're only on one continent. We've got islands. We've got over there with the dwarves that sail in underwater caves. I'm telling you, it's the most D&D thing in the world. In book
That's
2,
perfect.
in book 2, I recently wrote a land pirates that have mammoths that pull their like ship sled. Like, it's ridiculous. There's 50 feet of rope.
Cool.
The 50 feet of rope is very important.
Yes.
I was reaching down to get my, what's that, Ryan?
I was just gonna say, you can't go anywhere without rope. You need it for something.
Yep.
I was reaching down to grab my dog, one of his toys, and all of a sudden I hear water and dwarves, and I'm just like, now I want to know this.
Yes, absolutely.
So first, what I really want to know is, are you going to have a water battle with pirates versus dwarves? And
it must happen now. How can
you must fulfill your destiny, and you must allow me the pleasure of narrating just that one scene for a video, because that would be fun. I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine Pirates of the Caribbean meets Lord of the Rings on the waters in the One Piece universe? Okay, I'm done. But
One Piece all the way.
it's only legendary until someone proves it real. So what is your, going back to reality here? Sorry, I tend to kind of go off the rail sometimes, but what is your favorite character that you've created in your book, or even a couple that and why? What are the reasons they're your favorite?
I think my male main character is my favorite. I find it really easy to get into his head. One of my main issues that I had with my writing, according to my beta readers, and they were completely right, is that my female main character, she doesn't think a whole lot. She kind of observes, she reacts, but I was so worried about Fael because he makes some not great choices, and I needed people to understand where he was coming from. And so I was like, I need I also accidentally made another male main character really, really debonair and suave, and everybody loved him. And they're like, I feel like I like this guy more than your male main character. I was like, we're not gonna take this guy down. We have to bring Fael up. And I like dived into that guy's head. I'm like, this is his conflict. This is like his loyalties and his home, and this is his feelings and his instincts. And we are gonna deep dive into that nonsense. Angst all the way. And that was really fun.
I like that.
Before one of them asks, that's an awesome answer. First of all, before one of them asks you a question, I need to know, what your villain's name is and what one of your heroes. So give me one of your villains and one of your heroes' names, and I have a little thing I'm going to do for my next question.
Ooh. Okay, so my villain's name is technically Soraya. She is a shade who is possessing someone. And my female main character's name is Madeline Leonora Galentia. But they call her Leo for short, if they're
Is
for
that, you said Soraya, can you spell that for me?
Sariah.
Okay, and yes, I am writing on my hand because I'm old school. So that's villain. All right. And spell the hero's name for me.
My female main character, we call her Leo, Leo.
Perfect. All right, one of you gentlemen go ahead with your next one, and I got to think about my little creation question I'm going to do with this.
Well, while he's doing that, do you want to tell us, you've talked about the Between the Pages podcast, you've talked about your writing. What about your editing? Because you do that as well, right?
I do, and it's funny, he was talking about how we're writers and we want to have time to read, and I was like, lately I've been doing a lot of editing and I haven't been doing a lot of writing. I've been very lucky to be able to build my portfolio very quickly thanks to my friends and their trust in me. It has been so fun. It is so fun whenever it's not your own work, right? Because you're not emotionally connected to it and they're paying me. I'm never more honest with someone than whenever they are giving me money in exchange for my honest opinion, because that is my job, is to save you from yourself as so many others have saved me from myself. And of course it's always gentle. If there's even, there's never anything wrong, and I always follow the author's lead because I'm very, very sensitive about changing their voice or changing their intention. Always multiple suggestions if I make one. It has been a blast. I've gotten to do urban fantasy, epic fantasy. Next month, speaking of co-authors, my two friends co-authored a hockey romance, and I'm going to edit it next month. I'm super excited for that too.
Alfred
That's my
will
go-to
love
romance
that.
right there. So I'll be looking for that when it's out.
How about you, Ryan? You got one, brother, before I...
No, that was my question. Alfred, you got anything?
I do have one, but I'll let Nathan go.
Okay. Now, Alfred and Ryan, I want you to predict. All right. Are you team Soraya or team Leo?
Leo.
Make your choice. Okay.
I like the way she described Soraya, so I'll go with that.
Very well. All right, Miss Megan, tell me this. Soraya and Leo both get transported through a portal to another planet where they both lose their memories of their old life. Now, while they're on this new dimension planet, would these two characters hit it off and become friends, or would they still remain nemesises because of something deep in their subconscious buried down that would still make them villains at the end, against each other at the end of the day? What would happen?
I consider Leo and Soraya to be two sides of the same coin, so I think that they'd probably be friends.
Okay.
I love
Very
that.
nice.
That was my little makeshift question. We do something on this show where it's called, well, the podcast is called War of Nerds, but we legitimately do War of Nerds within the episode. And so I need to know, what is something, you love Harry Potter, right?
I enjoyed it as a teenager, yes.
Okay. So you and I, for about 5 minutes, we're going to do this. Is really fun. We've tried it out for a few episodes and we've had fun. So for just a few minutes, you and I are going to trash talk Harry Potter.
Got it.
And they're going to defend it.
They're gonna defend? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
got
All
it.
right.
Ready.
So J.K. Rowling, seriously, she wrote the whiniest character ever known to man. I mean, Harry Potter is just a snobby little, what? I'm a what? You're a wizard, Harry. I'm a what? Going down Diagon Alley. What's that? What's that? I don't understand. I didn't grow up with Muggle parents and all, but I'm a wizard? Really? Goblins? Blimey. So really, I mean, honestly, he should have been less what, and more like action driven. I would have loved to have seen Harry actually like figure stuff out for himself. He's 11 years old. So what? He's 11 years old. 11-year-olds are heroes. So anyways, Rowling failed tragically with her portrayal of Harry in book 1. That's my trash. How about you, Megan? What you got to trash?
I think that Hermione should have let him flounder a little bit more, and that Neville Longbottom should have been the real main character all along.
100%.
Ooh,
Those are
This-
two good points there.
they really are.
What you guys got? What you got?
I will attack this Harry Potter trashing if you want to handle the other ones there, Alfred. Because first off, whether he's whiny or not, you forget the tragic backstory of losing both his parents, not knowing where he came from, and then being thrust into a different world to catch up with people that have been dealing with those tragedies for 13 years before he has to catch up in such a small amount of time, and you expect him to do it with no help whatsoever. I think it speaks to his character, not his whininess, that he's able to gather those people around him to make him and them better people collectively. And that's
Give
all
me
I
your
got to say.
wand! Give me your wand! I want to see the light leave your eyes!
So
And yet
while
he
I think-
rises.
while I think that Neville has a very strong character and an interesting arc, I don't know if he has the capabilities of holding a story on his own like Harry did. Mainly because his courage comes from specific moments, like standing up to his friends, but otherwise he kind of flounders around and isn't necessarily the star of the scenes he's in. He does great, but it's more like interspersed, whereas Harry and the rest of the gang, they are, to contradict Nathan, they are always acting and doing something to further the plot, where Neville kind of just goes along with everything. Hermione letting him flounder a little bit, that one's hard to argue against, but and we're talking about her relationship with Ron, correct, in that regard, or the boys themselves to make them try stuff on their own?
Whichever one you thought was hard to argue against.
Okay. The the slow burn between Ron and Hermione may seem contrived, but if you look through the books, you can actually see that the friendship was there, but it was almost like an enemies to lovers kind of thing. So where she drug him along when she was with Grum, and then I think that's how you said his name from
So
Yeah.
Crumb?
Yes.
Victor Crumb?
Crumb, that's him.
Yeah,
Victor Crumb. There you go. So even though she teased him with that, and the little flirtiness that some people have picked up between her and Harry, those are where you can kind of see where she's led him along. And then it wasn't until he finally kind of realized, oh wow, Hermione isn't just a nerdy little girl, she's actually a beautiful woman. And then it clicks in him. She's like, duh, I've been here the whole time. So I think the dragging him along could have been an option, but I think the way that she did it played up to a more enemies to lovers romance.
Victor, I love you. Victor, I do. For the record, all of us love Harry Potter.
Yep.
But we like to do
enjoyed it.
these little things to just show the point. If you can't be objective and understand that everything has flaws, then what's the point in enjoying it? You can't fight something. You can't challenge something in court unless you understand both sides, the flaws and the positives. And that's what allows you to be able to protect your wonderful nerdy things. And that wasn't, anyways.
It'll be profound next time.
It will be if I can remember
think-
what adjectives or words I want to speak.
I think with the editing topic that we talked about, that's a great thing
Yeah.
that you tied in though, Nathan, because as especially when you're editing your own stuff, you have to be objective as best as you can when you're looking at it, because otherwise everything's going to be perfect. And if you can't see the flaws in your own writing, it may suffer. And if you're not willing to open your ears to your friends and beta readers and critique group, your work's going to suffer even more. Which does bring me up to something that I can't believe it took me so long to ask this, but how long have you been playing D&D?
Since I met my husband 8 years ago.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Still
And-
What's
haven't
your favorite character? What was
my
that?
favorite character,
Ooh,
like my
yeah.
favorite race, or like my favorite class, or my favorite character in my book.
Let's do favorite class of D&D character.
Okay. My favorite class is barbarian because I get to whack things and I hardly ever die.
Nice.
That's a good one.
Good choice.
Mine
The,
has always been ranger. I love the bow and arrow. Just that aesthetic just speaks to me.
Wizard class for me. Always go into the arcane.
That's
Cleric. Always the cleric. But you gotta be a battle cleric. Forget the healings. Just go in.
Very smart.
We're a perfect party. Look at us.
Yeah, look at that.
We actually were talking when we get this Discord for this War of Nerds up and running. We're gonna have a D&D channel, and we're gonna try to at least do a game every few months. Try to get people
Just
together and
for, like,
hopefully get
special
some.
occasions or something.
Yeah.
100%.
Almost like a
Now-
Critical Role-esque, where it's like people who have been on the podcast, if you can come to the game, we'll just throw a character together and kind of play as a special for the viewers and kind of build the community like you guys have done over at Between the Pages.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to ask this, since technically you're an indie author as we speak. However, when this episode actually airs, there is a good chance that that could be changing. But elaborate on your choice. Why are you seeking out, or at least thinking about, the traditional publishing route? And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
So it's mostly because that's all I knew when I started, and I didn't start in TikTok until, 6 months ago, or I guess it was longer now, time. But I joined TikTok, and that's when I learned that you even could self-publish. Like, I didn't even know that this was an option, that this was a thing that existed. And as time went on, and I'm listening to all these reasons that are making a whole lot of sense for why it's such a good option for a lot of people, I started a little bit back and forth and kind of swayed. Do I seek the validation of passing the test? Yes. Like I said, type A. It's just something that I want for no good reason, but also editing is expensive, cover art is expensive, and there is a market that can only really be tapped by traditional publishing, because some people prefer that vastly, or they don't even know that indie books exist in the way that they do. They walked into Target to find their next read. As things went on, and I realized that I would probably be so anxious under a deadline, just like you guys were talking about. Like, I have the most chaotic way of crafting a story that if I was like, this is what book 2 is going to be about, it'd probably be completely different by the time that it made it to them, and they'd be like, this is not what you said this is going to be. Like, but it's fun, right? Right now, I'm kind of weighing the idea of, if it was a small publisher that picked me up, like an indie publisher that picked me up, would I even go for that? Because I'm already doing the work of marketing, of broadening my reach, of trying to put in what I have to, and I'm not sure that the royalty cut or whatever that they would take would be worth the additional whatever it is that they offered. Like, they'd have to show that it was worth doing because you do make less money. And I'm not saying that I'm going to make $1 million off the Wingbreaker, but I am saying that I could just do whatever I want for like 17 books, all in the same world. And over time, like, it could grow into something all my own, all by myself with my complete control. And I did, like I said, already commission art and all that stuff. And it's been line edited from someone that's not me. So I'm going to make it the best that I can make it no matter what at this point.
And to add on to what you said too, I think it's important for everyone to realize, everybody, you know, thinks, you know, you go trad pub that immediately your stuff is going to be marketed like amazingly. And that's not always the case. A lot of play times and with different publishers, they don't market it at all. Like, you're still responsible for 100%. So I think making sure, asking a lot of questions when you get those queries, let's say you get your response, to get all of those things ironed out before you're like, yeah, I'll sign with you because I know y'all are going to be marketing for me, but I can still market myself on top of that. But that was a wonderful answer. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I did want to point out one other thing for Between the Pages. You host writing sprints all the time. What is the goal of that?
Writing sprint started for Danu in November. Every morning from 7 to 9, I went live on TikTok to set a 15, 20, it's now a 25-minute timer where everybody's quiet and mutes their stuff and types away. And then we all unmute and we're like, I did 500 million words. I did 150 words. I can't figure out this sentence. Can someone, you know, help me find a different word for side? You know, it's been really fun. It's been hard lately to get up in the morning, and then like as soon as everybody pops in, and it's just like, this is the only thing that's keeping me in a scheduled routine right now. I'm like, well, then I'm glad that we're all here together, that I made it here this morning instead of staying in bed and being whiny like Harry Potter.
Do you know what made your answer amazing is I love how you said everybody mutes themselves and it's silence for 20 minutes, because you go on a lot of these lives and they're like, join us for writing sprints. 20 minutes of just like clickety clackety, clickety clackety, dun 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 dun. You're like, what is this? Babies crying in the background, somebody having a rock party pan, like people like clackety or like popping gum, and you're just like, oh, I can't do this. But yours sounds like a relaxing, floating on an ocean in Hawaii. Just close your eyes and you're not in Kansas anymore. So,
everybody has different audio needs, and my audio needs include having zero audio input at all. Basically, actually, that's not completely, because while drafting, I listened to basically the exact same like hard violin, most epic violin, like 3 hours right in my ears to make sure that I couldn't hear like Halo in the background or
sorry.
What
I like that.
what outside of writing, outside of editing, outside Between the Pages, who is Megan? Are you what do you do outside of that? Do you have a full-time job? I understand you are a wife and you have some kids. What do you do when you're not being the author?
I homeschool my two babies. They are 7 and 4.
Aw.
I also homeschool the neighbors' kids, so I'm a care aide, and their insurance pays me to have them come over for a few hours a week, and we take care of, like, at first it was just one student and we took care of his homeschool. Now they go to a hybrid school, so they have a big packet of homework every week. They go there 3 times a week. They come to me 2 times a week, and so we go through their homework and stuff for 2 of the children. I won't be doing that anymore come August. They're going to go full time with their private school because they got a discount through them, and they're very excited for that. And I'm very excited for them. Otherwise, I grow a lot of cut flowers.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
Very cool. I have a
Have you
brown
seen
thumb.
those?
I've tried to grow vegetables, but they die.
Have you seen those little videos, Megan, where they show you how you take a seed from a vegetable or a fruit and they show you how to regrow an entire plant from that just one seed?
From a seed?
That's pretty neat, I think.
You mean like a cutting of a stem?
like with different like fruits and vegetables, it's like hacks on how to grow an entire new like plant or whatever from one seed. Like you eat a mango, and then they're
Yeah.
like, now what you do with this is cut the core and then take blah 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 blah, and then you have a mango plant.
For sure. I love starting from seed.
It's so much fun. Now, this is one of my favorite questions to ask, and then I'm gonna let Ryan ask one because I feel like just been like Ryan's been the silent observer. But
all right.
if you could have your book turned into a movie or a TV show, what would you want it to look like, and would it be live action or animated?
I feel like it would only be done justice if it was animated.
Yes.
I don't have like a specific studio that I think would fantastically like that's the one. Although I'm a Miyazaki, as we all are, and I don't think live action does the best job most of the time with magic and monsters.
Agreed.
Be like a sword
Agreed.
art style,
Okay.
sort of of monsters.
Yeah, but before it sucked, right? That version.
So season 2, it just got a little bit weird, didn't it?
Yeah, Sword Art Online was like classic up until like closer towards the end, and then you're like, okay. Yeah, alrighty. Well, yeah, moving on. What you got, Ryan? You got a question? I know there's something burning on your mind, man.
I mean, I've honestly been enjoying listening to all the conversation. That's one of our favorite parts about all of this. But we're getting close to the end of it. We're trying to keep them around 45 minutes to an hour. But to kind of close this out, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Well, my aim is to publish a book a year, which I know is not, the speediest that you'll find on the good old TikTok, but I think that's a good pace for me considering it took forever to edit. 1 book a year, that means I'll have 5 books published, I guess. And I'll have a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old. Oh, I might cry.
Oh God.
Can't think about that.
Yep.
I have a 4-year-old now, and just thinking about that makes me want to cry.
I'm still below a year with mine, and each month that goes by is crazy.
It's
fast
crazy.
forwarding for me. So
Megan, in 50 years, or down the line, when Megan is old and gray and her chillins are all grown up and off on their own lives, and Megan's books are all over the place, what is that you want to be remembered by when somebody picks up a book? What do you want to be remembered for when somebody picks up and looks at your book? A phrase, a quote, something about you. What do you want to be seen as at that point?
I want to be known as the author that is intentional with every single word, that seeds in all of the things at the very beginning and you don't notice it until you read through it a second and a third time.
That's
a great
amazing.
answer.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Kind of like Steins Gate.
Mhm.
How about you, Alfred? You got another one, brother?
Not off the top of my head. Like that answer kind of floored me. That's a really good answer.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was a pleasure. It was finally nice to have a woman on the show. We haven't had one yet, and especially someone who writes romance, which is a different genre than what we've been. So that's been
Fantasy
fantastic.
with romance subplot. Got to be specific.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can get. We would love to have you back as a guest, just to be nerd out on an episode topic of your choice, or whatever else. I think that'd be fantastic. But I will leave our audience with this. If you enjoyed this content, make sure you come find us on all the stuff: Discord, Spotify, YouTube, the Talk of the Tick, aka the Clock app, and all the good ones. And all of our social medias will be listed below our little boxes when you see this video, so you'll be able to find Megan. But for the listeners, where would you like people to come? Do you have a website that you, especially for your editing and your other services and your books, where would you like people to come to interact with you and talk to you about your editing and your books?
I spend plenty of time on TikTok, and that's just Megan G. Mossgrove. My little tag is Mossgrove Writes, and my website is mossgrovewrites.com. And that has all the editing stuff, and it'll have all the book stuff as well.
And we'll have that in the description
Fantastic.
on
I'll be
the,
shooting you a follow
as well.
Yep.
And are you guys following Megan, Alfred, Ryan?
Yep.
Yep.
I see
Okay.
her writing sprints all the time. In fact, to go back to that real quick before we sign off, I never knew why they were so silent. It'd come up and I'd just be mesmerized for like 2 or 3 minutes. Like, why is nobody talking and there's nothing going on? I've
Yep.
never popped in when you guys are discussing it. It's always when the clock's up. So until now, I have literally been confused by those, but now it makes so much sense to me. And then
That's-
finally, I would watch an entire Neville Longbottom movie from his perspective. So just to throw
That would
back to
be
that.
Spinoff, I would be down to see Neville Longbottom, the other chosen one, because he really truly was the
Yeah.
other chosen one. Just for all of you listeners to let that sit in your mind, just remember
That's
Neville
the other
Longbottom.
beauty of that
was
that
another-
little thing we do, because like the guests we have on, that they, when they attack it or they defend it and they change things, like that opened my mind to be like, wow, Neville probably could actually carry his own story.
Mind blown.
Yeah.
And we'll leave the audience with that to let their minds be blown for the rest of the night. We have been your bearded nerdy hosts and our special guest, Megan. Thank you all so much for spending time with us tonight. And until next time, do funky fantasy, do the bowler, do Stratosaurus, and special guest Megan Mossgrove. It's the War of Nerds. See y'all next time.